Here we are.
Have you got audio? Just checking.
Audio is good.
Yep.
Okay, nice. Cool. All right. Let me pull you into where you were last time. So we'll just start there. The five of you are once again alone in the ruins of Shosei, left behind by all of the other people that were here a moment ago. You've just been hit by two first waves in a row, and you can see off in the far distance that the Redshift has begun upon that infinitely, impossibly high tower. Yes, Albus Taver, your OO is noted.
No, he's amazed, and I was doing some I didn't want to interrupt anything. It was a cool.
Now,
how far in can we see from here? And before we leave, would we have enough time to at least try to see where the ruins lead to the edge of the glass box?
I think that's pretty reasonable. If you guys want to try to go forward northeastern through the city a little bit further before you turn around and run. Keep in mind it is pretty late night at this point. So you may decide to camp out here anyway. That's up to you.
It's going slow enough that we would have the time for that?
Redshift is always slow enough that you have time to outrun it on foot. So at least it has been so far. Yeah, it. I mean, most of the time you guys are more than a single day away from your home base, so you do end up having to camp out on the way home. That's been true for almost every session, in fact.
Yeah, I was going to say, we usually have a string of days before the wave itself actually hits us after we get the warning.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I wasn't exactly sure, how big and far it spreads in relationship to the tower, like how many hexes a day, for example.
So this is, to be fair, this is pretty old information. Like, this was all stuff I told you guys almost 3 years ago now. Consistently throughout your time in the Redshift zone and from the people's examinations who were here before you, it's determined that as far into the Redshift zone as you have been so far, the Redshift field seems to move at a consistent rate no matter where you are. So it spreads out, and eventually the great thing about the Fort Maricus location starting out was that Fort Maricus would only ever be under the Redshift for maybe 1 or 2 days, and then the Redshift would wane at that point. Now that you're almost halfway through Vesoth, there is much more time that you have to spend under the Redshift compared to that relatively safe camp at the start. But even being this close, you have taken note that the Redshift does seem to not move any faster here than it does way out on the edge.
Okay, then.
Additionally, I should remind you that it has been confirmed by Dex and other people in recent history that the edge of the Redshift that can be that you can literally walk up to from the Cradian Empire has never moved. So it always seems to go to the same spot, and that is held true for the few years that you've been here, and most likely held true for the past few decades, at least. Unclear if it's been that way for the past 1,000 years. Nobody really knows.
Gotcha. All right. Then yeah, I guess we should probably rest here, maybe closer to the glass wall, so we can try to inspect it a little bit further and see if there's any semblance of like what used to be the front gates that might have some thing about passage, maybe. I don't know.
Sure. And before we do that, because this would have so we did kind of rush through it at the end last week. But I'd like to give everybody the opportunity on the way back from the mountains, as you were returning with your bounty with Holtzman and Karen. Anybody who wants to, right now, I'm giving you the opportunity to retroactively ask one of them one question, which they'll do their best to answer for you.
Yeah, I'm good actually. I felt like I got everything I needed to ask in.
Okay.
Likewise, I figure I cheesed a bunch of map information out of them.
You did get a few location names, yeah. If nobody has a question, that's okay too.
I guess I would
I
probably
think I'm
ask
good.
Holtzman where he was going next.
He told us that, didn't he?
He did mention it, but he was kind of coy about it a lot of the time.
Right, but it was something about an artifact in Alsanes or something.
Yeah, and he'll say at this point, after the whole deal is done, he'd tell you, well, now that we've done our work and hopefully saved the princess's life again, I'll get back to my work and I'll be heading over to the Lake City.
Well, I hope you find what you're looking for there.
I'm sure I will.
I would probably have asked Karen where the rest of the crew wanted to go that was so contrary to what Holtzman wanted to do.
Karen would have said that this guy's always in a big rush, and he thinks if we don't get where he's going fast enough, somebody else will do it. So, poor folks like me who can't help but help a princess in need have to push and drag this guy on a quest like this, and good thing you showed up because he wasn't budging till I got some reinforcements.
Well, he got credit for the thing, so.
Gakari and Nikta, they're back with the king and queen, keeping them updated and just in case there was another emergency, figured it was best to split up for something like this.
Good to know. All right, then.
All right, if nobody else has any fun questions, then we'll return to the present.
I can't think of anything fun.
Yeah, I can't really either.
Okay, that's fair enough. So it is nighttime when you return to Chose. Um, so currently it is night. The sun has set, um, but you can probably spend a little bit of time continuing onward. You guys have access to all sorts of lighting abilities, so I'm not going to ask you about those. Um, would you like to continue northeast through the city ruins?
I'd like to. I would imagine the outer area here has been picked clean, but we're trying to find a way in.
Very well. So you are actually pretty far into the city already. You had made your way through a fairway down one of the main roads before you bumped into Holtzman and Kieran and Gakari. Um, so uh, perhaps another half hour's walk northeast down the same road that you were on um, finds you face to face with this great glass wall once again. And what you see in this area is why doesn't everybody make a perception check as you're approaching so that I can tell you what's important?
Damn. So much for those 7 points.
It does be like that.
Gonna be that kind of night.
Amber Green, you can do a perception check as well.
All right, hold on.
Oh, and I wanted to reply to Montlaren's out of character comment. The redshift doesn't make sound either. So it coming over you when the redshift actually happens is you wouldn't notice it if your eyes were closed or anything like that. It's purely something that you can see and obviously be magically affected by if you're not
Right.
a safe obelisk.
And-
nice 17.
Just to be thorough in that out of character question, because I was
Sure.
intrigued with it as well. The redshift itself doesn't make any sound, but are there things that you could look for that make sound? Like
if there was like
wind or like a hissing of grass if it touches it.
If they're in situations where like the redshift passes over a tree and then the tree gets all shifted and shit, that definitely makes sound depending on how that tree is being manipulated.
That's really good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, the bark snapping and the branches bending into strange shapes or different materials or crystallizing or shattering or whatever it is they do. What was that?
Shift itself doesn't have a sound, just what it affects.
Correct. Yeah. The actual like miasma field it doesn't make like a big blom sound as it expands or anything like that. It's pretty much silent.
A wom sound.
Yeah. No. So it would be really cinematic if it did, but that's not how it works here.
By movies.
hmm
Gotta have funny, strange music in the background.
Yeah, like if there was a cutscene where the redshift was shown sweeping over stuff, it would have a whooshing effect. But that's not real.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like the nothing from the Never-Ending Story going.
It's funny. I was gonna say, when you look up at the sky, the redshifted sky, is it like fast forwarded or fast reversed clouds?
Not usually.
I hear it could be in that, not usually.
So when you make it to the base of this great glass wall in the ruins, you see that The wall is in much the same state as you found it outside the walls. So it goes. It was northwest, southeast, completely straight up and down as far as you can see. And cleanly bisects everything in its path. Those of you who rolled high would notice this first. In the dark, you can see that the old cracked flagstones and weathered rocks that make up the roads here that are still fairly intact. Weeds growing in patches here and there. See that one area is adjacent to the glass wall. There's like a 20-foot semicircle of melted stone slag adjacent to the wall nearby where you are currently located.
How big around?
It's like a 20-foot radius originating from the wall.
Okay, damn.
And you can see that the what was previously most likely more of these old weathered flagstones in that area, and the ground below them has been at some point melted and later cooled over. So it's kind of this rippled puddle effect in that location. Other than that, around you, you see that many of the buildings, despite being in some places overgrown, occasionally you've passed a garden that is overflowing, or what was once a garden. But for the most part, a lot of these buildings seem crumbled and weathered, but pretty well preserved. A lot of them still have their shingled roofs, and many of them have seem to have their structural integrity inside intact. Would any of you have taken any time to look inside any of the buildings?
Definitely.
For sure.
Definitely.
Okay. This may not be surprising to you, but unlike Orvis, where Orvis is in a swamp and on a river, so things in Orvis were rusted through, infested with mold and everything like that, and it looked like they had been. You'd remember that they were kind of abandoned where they sat, almost, middle of the day sort of thing. But in Orvis, there was not a single shred of natural life, not even a bug. In Shosei, that is not the case. Throughout your time walking through the ruins, you have encountered the occasional bird. You may have even seen it's nighttime now, so probably a couple of raccoons or a fox running through one of the alleyways, just in front of you, darting through as you're heading down the road with your lights up.
I was about to ask, any cats?
You haven't seen any cats yet, but that's not a bad guess.
Alvis Taver likes cats for their self-sufficiency.
So yeah, definitely the same thing that was happening in Orvis that was somehow preventing things from living here is not happening here. But unlike Orvis, you can see that the insides of these buildings are fairly desolate. Um, while there is some crumbled wooden furniture here and there, um, whereas you in Orvis you were able to find several examples of silverware and stuff like that just sitting around. Um, here it's uh, void of pretty much anything, at least that you can find on a first glance.
So not even furniture or anything?
There's furniture dotted around here and there, but most of it is well and truly in ruins.
Yeah, that would probably mean that any like writing or paper we found was probably well and truly screwed too, right?
Possibly. You were able to find some in Orvis that was pretty well preserved in some watertight and nearly airtight boxes. Um, old but legible. So it's certainly possible the same thing has happened here. Uh, at the very least, it's a lot drier here than it was in Orvis. So that might have helped preserve those sorts of things a little bit more easily. If they
Yeah,
were
in the
properly-
desert, things would have been preserved.
if
So
they were properly put away.
Right.
that
It's just we're like on the outskirts, we're in the grassland. I'm just thinking all the rats and stuff, but like anyone who's stored books in California probably understands what I'm talking about.
For sure.
Yep.
But the fact that we're not seeing things like we did in Orvis suggests that um,
The, the city
that they
itself.
had time
Yeah,
to
well,
pack up their things and go,
Right.
yes.
so that it wasn't a surprise attack and we have no time, and so food is even left out where it was being eaten. This is more orderly and more cleaned up, and there's not even much in the way of evidence of people living here.
There are still animals where there weren't in the other place.
Yeah. I wish there was some way to determine if the glass wall predates the redshift or not. Like maybe it was a measure to try to hold it back or something.
Well, and that scorchiness implies that somebody tried to like melt through it or burn through it or something. I mean, somehow.
Or that's how it was created,
Sure.
because you create glass from melted sand. So if you produce enough fire and enough magnification of the sun on the sand, you could produce, with direction, you could produce a wall endlessly high, because you have an endless amount of resource. You have an endless amount of sun, and you
Yeah,
have an
heat
endless amount of sand.
Well, Montlaurent, why don't you make an investigation check at this wall?
My
Is there-
master had something to say about endless amounts of anything, and that was anybody who says that there's an endless amount of a thing generally doesn't have the right perspective. Endless.
That's a big not smart at that wall. So a 9 won't tell you much other than what you've already seen about this thing. That it seems to just cleanly cleave through everything up and down. Like I said before, no impurities within or anything like that.
I'll probably have Badath go kind of horizontal to us in both directions and kind of try to find any sort of break or crack or intentional opening.
Okay. 100 feet northwest, 100 feet southeast. He doesn't find anything of the sort.
Okay. Good to know. And it's the same sort of thing where if the glass were to just disappear, there'd be a cascade of built up sand kind of pouring down on us.
Not really a cascade, but you think if you were to get rid of it, you definitely get a little. Yeah, so the fact that you're actually adjacent to this, you can see that the other side of the wall, now that you're in the city, um, the buildings are sand blasted, way more heavily worn than anything on this side, and there are large, not quite dunes, but piles of sand that have piled up in all of the corners and other locations, and up against the wall. Not like above your head, but um, a few feet stacked up on the other side of this wall, and you can just see it stacked up on that side there.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it might be if you're gonna, if you were able to get through this wall and get to the other side, you might want a couple steps up to the sand level. Then you could walk on top of it.
Hmm.
Mont Lauren, are you just because I want to be aware of your ideas? Are you proposing that the wall may um, surround the tower entirely at this radius?
I mean, at the most epic level, yeah. But really, my thought, like remember, Monlar's not particularly smart, but he does come from a fairly advanced culture. So I think he was thinking more like it reminded him of like a dam, like trying to hold back a floodwater,
Oh yeah,
right? And so like maybe it was some attempt to hold back the redshift.
I get your idea. Cool.
They would have had to do it in an instant because it seems like most of the society that lived here only had one chance, and then they're burnt.
Yeah, there's never been aside from the clan of goblins that um, live on the western edge of the Redshift, um, and enjoy the safety that it provides from other humanoids. Um, there's never been a sapient creature that has survived more than a few seconds under the Redshift. Unless it
Right.
was a sapient creature that was made by the Redshift. Usually they've been okay. Um, and actually, that is not quite correct. There have been a few exceptions. It seems to afflict humanoids the most virulently. Creatures like Ruby, or obviously the grandmother, who has quite a few powers of her own. Um, Ruby was only partially transfigured. He was not, fully destroyed
What about
as a
Tilda?
human would be. Tilda also is able to survive out there somehow.
Well, yeah, she attributed that to her house though, like sort of psychic defense based on how long and well lived in it was, right?
Yeah, something like that. It's the idea that she gave you. Um, some kind of odd magic that she had going on.
A couple people melded with structures.
Indeed, yeah. It seemed there have been multiple cases of people living on as spirits that have kind of well, so Witch Guardian Arisa told you that as her memories gradually came back to her over the weeks since her rescue, she explained that her proxy in her tower um, that used to take care of things around that tower for her had done that as a means to rescue her from the fate she was about to endure. So it essentially extracted her mind out of her body and made it so that when her body transformed, she wasn't stuck a immortal, horrible monster that you guys encountered. Um, the old priest, Larry's, at the who has now become one with the temple. He hasn't really given you any indication of how he got to be in that state, but that seems more of a accidental situation because he doesn't have a proxy of his own. And Arisa hasn't been able to come up with any suggestions for how that might have happened. Other than that, he's just a ghost attached to his old place.
And of course, Selmas was trapped.
Right, yeah, and he was a devil, so not
Guys
quite
doing just fine.
Yeah, not quite a humanoid. He was trapped by the fact that the Redshift had shifted. It had killed all of his worshippers, and it had shifted the spell focus that would normally have kept him there for only like about an hour, like spells like that usually do, and made it unbreakable and it essentially turned it into indefinite concentration until dispelled, which was very problematic for this devil, being immortal and not able to leave that little 5-foot radius circle. Again, normally that sort of spell would last an hour. You'd have a chat with the devil or like say his true name and then get him to go do something for you. But bad timing for him.
Indeed.
He did tell you he got to watch a lot of his worshippers die in horrible ways, and he enjoyed that for what it was worth. And let's see, I'm trying to think. Have there been any others that we've encountered?
We still don't know about the necromancer who was harassing the goblins.
Clark the horse.
Oh yeah, Clark.
Well, Clark got horribly shifted though. Clark is a skeleton now.
But he's alive in that weird kind of way.
Yeah, sort of alive. Yeah, we had Ruby, we had grandmother, obviously all of grandmother's children and whatnot. She helped them survive long term. Guyveen, Arisa, Tilda. Yeah, that's kind of it as far as sapients go. So, yeah, to get back to the point, obviously nobody in the commission has tried this, except for a couple of accidents before any of you ever arrived. But any humanoid who's ever stepped foot in the Redshift, unprotected, has died in seconds as their body gets shifted into some horrible event. Even the Brigadier, her tale, as she's told you, is that that half of her body that is all shifted, she was only in the field for maybe about 5 seconds. So if that had done that to her whole body, if she had actually stepped foot entirely in there, she would have been shifted in her entirety in less time than it would take to even notice it happening.
That's good to
know. Examining the sort of like slag, hemisphere there. I actually want to like explicitly look at the interface between that sort of semicircle and the glass wall. Is there any indication of which came first?
Yes. You can see the stonework on the other side of the wall from where you're looking. And it's dark now, but we don't need to get too specific about it because you'd have the chance to look at this in the morning if you really wanted to. So we don't need to worry about vision and all that. You can see that it is under the sand. The stonework is pristine on the other side. The same effect has not occurred on that side.
Okay.
And on this side, the intensity of the rippling effect is definitely higher the closer to the wall that you get.
Got it. I feel like somebody probably had a bad day.
Yeah, that was my thought.
Might not have been magical glass, but it very much seems like it was made by magical means.
I literally can't imagine an apparatus capable of doing this, so I'd have to agree.
Yep, that's accurate. You've probably never heard of anything quite this scale.
Right.
And obviously, this seems like an impossible thing to create through mundane means.
Well, mundane? What do you mean by mundane?
Non-magical. You couldn't.
Well, remember, like several months back, I kind of coined this phrase called science.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So using science, which is mundane, something on a smaller scale could do this. So what I'm thinking is that a directed mundane use of mundane materials and then with a boost from magic could have resulted in this glass wall.
That's certainly an option. Yes, if somebody like taking something that somebody has made by hand with regular people tools and then doing some magic on it to make it do something else is a perfectly normal thing to do.
Right, but it's a mix of the mundane, which would be
Right.
science, and then magical.
What you know is that it would be monumentally unreasonable for a mundane society to build a first of all I'll reiterate that it's completely flawless and completely flat. No curves, no bubbling, no like stuff on the inside. There's hardly the refraction is perfect to the other side. um, uh, Nobody could make this amount of glass, this quantity at this and at this scale. Um, you might be able to do something similar on the scale of, like a big glass door or a big glass window, even a big glass roof, like the greenhouses, that sort of thing. This is nowhere close to that. This is unreasonable from the start. Now, a wizard did it. Sure, maybe. That's basically the only explanation your mind can kind of come up with at this point. If you're thinking about somebody did this intentionally, a wizard must have done something, or a god. But even then, thinking about a wizard did it, for example, um, this is this is of a level that would be difficult to conceive even at the very high levels of wizardry. Those of you in the party who know of it like this would be something that you could potentially create with a casting of the spell Wish, but that's the kind of casting of the spell Wish, which is something you get at the top level of wizard shit. That
Right.
would almost certainly make it so that you can never cast Wish again in your life.
Right. And so that makes some sense that you've got some wizard at the tower maybe who is trying desperately to protect the tower and the rest of Vesoth from something. And so they conceive to use this combination of mundane and magical means to create this humongous glass wall to protect, because they can, out of sand and sunlight, and just magically boost it so that to protect against this unseen, unknown to us anyway, influence. And it went so high, it could have been a flying creature like a dragon. And maybe they were just flipped out about it. And so this seemed like a really good way to defend the tower and the people of Vesoth for a long time.
Amber Green, you can cast
Indeed.
Dimension Door.
Yes,
You're
yeah.
not sure without trying if it'll work, if it'll get you to the other side, but all the criteria for you to cast it, you can see your destination is there. Montlarin, same goes for your Misty Step, I think. So
That was my thought. Yeah.
I mean, if that's something you guys want to try, I would initially recommend that you have a return planned, a return plan in mind. But other than that, if you want to try it, you are here and can.
I only have one dimension door.
Yeah, I likewise. I've burned my ability to Misty Step already.
If I wanted to be a real dick, I could try to blink.
Oh no, I do have 2 spell slots left. I could go there and back.
I don't have 2. I couldn't go there and back. I could only go there. The only way I could get back is by blinking. Luckily,
Blink puts you in random spots through the ethereal plane, right?
yeah, that's why I said it would have to be luck.
Well, Montlarin, if you want to drop the spell in the chat, and if you want to give it a shot, again, we can certainly try this.
No, I actually think I'm good. I don't want to go over to the other side of that alone. Even if I could just zip back, I still feel like way more trouble could, like, man, our luck is not that good.
I can Misty Step.
Oh, okay.
I have slots that
we've
are
got
open.
a few people who can do that. But yeah, that's that's not an unwise choice. Certainly, with Dimension Door, at least you'd have 2 people on the other side.
Now, when we're talking about the age of this thing, we did get confirmation from our friends in the other time that no such glass wall existed in their time zone.
Correct. I mean, we even saw for ourselves, to be fair.
Right. So, have we nailed down yet any kind of likely time that they're in?
Well,
There's no redshift in that time zone either.
No. You knew that the event at Midoro took place in I believe it was year 198.
Okay.
Yes. In Lugaus. So in the late year. I don't know if you've found out when some of these other events have happened.
We've tried. Usually the answers we've got back, though, are like, oh yeah, I remember that. That was, a while ago.
Karen did say it was.
Yes,
had been
imprecise.
some months since he won the Midoro Festival.
Right.
Some months, and for us it's a couple of years. So if we're talking about the same general year or two where we've run into our friends, then what year is it currently, sir?
For you, it is the year 1220.
In the same uh, time calculation?
Same calendar, yes.
Okay.
You found that out
So
in
it
your
was
first.
roughly 1,000 years ago, roughly.
Right.
Yeah, 1020.
Right.
I think it was exactly 1020 at the time that you saw the first event.
Okay. So 1,020 years ago, what we need to do is find out from um, the Brigadier or Dex or Van, if any of them have some kind of record or can suggest where we might look, or Arissa even, like what year, roughly, even ballpark, the Redshift started. That would help us nail down a time calendar of, at 198 in Medoro, it was like this.
So
Yeah,
again, we're definitely going back to very, very early campaign information. But some of the information Dex has as one of the leading researchers in the world on the Redshift phenomenon is that probably the leading researcher in the world on the Redshift phenomenon is that records around that era are extremely imprecise because it was kind of a thing where Vesoth just blipped off the map one day and there was some amount of chaos in the aftermath.
Did someone note the 1 day date? 1 day, whenever that was?
Information, according to Dex, has been lost in the past 1,000 years.
In someone's diary. Oh, so this shit happened today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, was that 600 years ago, 800 years ago? I mean, it's so far back that it's not
they know,
super important.
They know it was about 1,000. So
it all happened like at once.
From
We don't know, it seems.
Arisa's testimony that she's given you. Let me double check precisely what it is that she said. Moment. Sorry, I had this information specifically somewhere because her information is pretty specific.
Well, there's a pause too. I'm just wondering, like, why we need to know this. What will it help us do?
Oh, it's all good info, right?
I guess. I mean, we got a job to do, and it doesn't seem like this info is doing anything but tangenting us.
Here we go. And not wrong, Albus Taver. A lot of this is review. To be fair, we have known a lot of this information. We are coming up on the 3-year anniversary of the campaign in a few months, so it's easy to lose track of things that your characters have known and been intimately aware of for a long time.
Certainly.
Yeah, it's pretty bad when player knowledge is worse than character knowledge.
Let me review what Arisa has told you in the past explicitly, because this was kind of information that you got several weeks ago in character, and it's been some time since we went over that out of character. When the first Redshift happened, Arisa received contact from Vess, that lasted only a few moments before her contact with the secretary was cut off. After that, she was able to contact over long range communication Alsanes, Vrabast, and Jose next. And those were lost just a few days afterward. Colas and Ophuel were lost after that.
What does lost mean? Like no communication lost?
No communication cut off. Yes.
Okay.
In all of the cases with all of the cities except for Vess, she tried to help them and give them what information she could transfer between from city to city, and they tried to evacuate. But with all of the nation's information lines rapidly breaking apart, there was very little that she could do. And most of all, it was completely impossible to evacuate all of the dozens of smaller towns and villages around the nation. And in her personal case, at that point, she kind of knew what was coming, but didn't really have anywhere to evacuate to and had sworn an oath to remain there until death. So that's why she stayed. So, from her point of view, there was a lot of panic and a lot of attempted evacuation at this time, but it was mostly a failure.
And does she have a date?
Her date, she doesn't have a specific date. Pieces of her memory are still foggy, especially around the moments that she died personally, or had her consciousness transferred, more specifically. But around the year 200 mark is accurate.
Okay. So in the last 1,000 years,
the Redshift has gone on, repeated over and over and over again. Every 10 days or so, the Redshift would start again. It would wane for a few days, start again after that.
you said Medora was 198? So
Correct.
only 2 years later, Orissa is cut off. And it's basically, for the last 1,000 years, we have nada but Redshift.
Correct. It's from the perspective of the
It's
Crazy
kind of
Empire,
unreal.
which is Vesot's only neighbor. It was a sort of well, we're pretty sure it's not expanding anymore, and we can have people look and investigate this thing, and maybe occasionally people will go in and try to do something about it. But until Dex came along and he dedicated much of his career to studying the thing, nobody was able to make any meaningful progress. Occasionally you'd have crazy adventurers who would run in there and they'd either run home screaming or just disappear forever and nobody'd ever hear from them again.
Sure. Well, with the Redshift, I mean, it's pretty.
Yeah, and all sorts of horror stories abound about the things that you'd see even on just the borderlands of the Redshift zone. There were definitely people who went in there during a wane, managed to escape, but still encountered some of the horrors that are dealt with here. But Dex is the first person who is known to invent the blue shift device that prevents the redshift from actually doing anything in that local area. So the furthest that anybody could have possibly made it into the redshift zone would have been, like a few days of travel.
Right.
So,
okay.
maybe...
Well, so it's frustrating But it seems as though nobody has been here. We're looking at something that's been here for 1,000 years. If the redshift wasn't almost on top of us, I'd like to spend a lot more time here in Jose, looking through all of the structures, looking for any scraps of paper. The desert should have preserved them pretty well.
Right, try to reconstruct more.
Try to
what happened.
reconstruct a timeline, anything that might let us know when the glass happened. But what we do know is that the redshift, thank you, sir, has been happening for 1,000 years, roughly. So here we are, and we don't know when the glass came up or down, but if it was intended to be some kind of maybe protection from the redshift, it would suggest that the
It clearly
wizards,
failed if that's the case.
right, and that the wizards of Vesoth were really kind of stupid, because it seems like they should have known about their global level of failure before instituting something like this glass wall.
Well,
But-
yeah, like Arisa said, each individual city was almost left to its own devices because things
Right,
happened.
because you don't have any
for
global communication.
only a couple of days. Yeah, there in her time there were a fair few people, but only a few from city to city who could communicate with each other. You might also have a couple of communications connected into that system, dotted around here and there. But for the most part, it's not like they didn't have an internet, they didn't have a phone system. It was the ability to do these sorts of sendings to people who had the know-how and the artifacts that would allow them to do this magically. Um, so there were a few people who, according to Arisa, were able to kind of try to coordinate things while it was all happening. But then, you try to coordinate with somebody over the course of a day. They try to evacuate their city. Wake up the next morning, all of a sudden they're already gone. The evacuation has failed. You never hear from them, and then you've lost information. You can't tell what's happening, and all of that, and so on. So it was very difficult for her to get anything useful out of the people she was trying to help. Her priority at the time was kind of, well, something really bad is happening in these. I'm losing touch with all of these cities, and I haven't heard a single thing from Vess. The best thing to do would probably be to evacuate everybody, but again, that's all basically an impossible task on that kind of time scale. Also, you don't have to thank me for talking about Redshift lore.
Well, I thank you
appreciate
for
the,
reviewing it. Here we are 3 years later, and I've long forgotten those details that
No, that's all.
I didn't have a context for back then.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of context that I have known for a long time. That was unclear in the past.
I think my concerns have to do with, one, there's very few people or record of people who can tell us anything. Those that can have somehow been changed, or
Right, you have
They
grandmother
seem to be in some other
have
place.
hidden out, in order to survive. So we've got like 4, maybe 5 humanoids who can actually talk to us about what they know.
Exactly. Grandmother
That's it.
has been here since before the Redshift. She's told you this.
Right.
But
Arisa,
she's also
Thaddeus.
Archaeology is tough business, Naya.
Yeah.
I mean, out of
Did
character.
you say theology?
No, I said archaeology.
Oh, archaeology. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm just like, we don't even know what happened to the original Egyptian dynasties, and they were around for like 1,000 years, built the pyramids, and they just collapsed out of nowhere. And the best thing we have is some cartouche thing that was sent to another kingdom asking for help because of sea raiders. So we think that they were like raided by the sea. But even with our like 2020 awesome technology, we have no idea what fucking happened to that dynasty. I'm like, the cards are stacked against us that we're ever going to figure out why the wall was put here. I really care about getting past the wall in a means that doesn't involve, something too long, so that we can, get there and back in like a reasonable Redshift's time.
Yeah, and Alvis, I think that kind of speaks to your goal of at some point you're going to have to get the commission through this thing.
Yep. And and at this point, I am
And I'm
ready
also-
to just go to bat for that.
I'm also not admonishing you for the history. The history of this place definitely sells the story, which is part of what I'm doing here too. I'm a little nervous about the Redshift right now, so please forgive me.
Oh, Alvis Tavern, you know it's okay. You like I said before, the Redshift, you were able to outrun it on foot, include over multiple days.
Yeah,
always
Alvis Taver is OCD, like measure twice, cut once, unless in the moment kind of thing. He sees the Redshift coming. It's time to go, man.
Yeah, for sure. But again, like I said, it's late. You guys were gonna have to camp out soon anyway. Just as good a place to do it as any.
It makes him sad.
What was I saying before that? Right. People who have been here before the Redshift. Grandmother, very isolated. Arisa does have a lot of information that she's told you.
But also isolated. Each of these people were
kind of
isolated.
Yeah, she wasn't like in a big city or anything. She was off in a forest doing her own thing until like she noticed that all she had was her connection to the secretary at Vest, and she lost that immediately.
Right.
Guyveen Larry's not fully there at this point. Potential to recover, maybe. We're working on it.
Yeah, we might be able to help that along. But he's kind of like in Arissa's boat.
Yeah.
In terms of having thrown his consciousness into a building. So, but if he was able to recover his consciousness, at least to a greater degree, it would be super interesting and informative. Because basically, we can lay out a timeline, left to right, 198 to 2027 or whatever you said, and put like 2 or 3 things in there, and then the rest of it is 1,000 years of I don't know. I mean, it's good we can lay that out, and it satisfies the logical mind, but I mean, it's 1,000 years of I don't know.
And then I was gonna say, Tilda, according to her, had been living in the Redshift zone for part of her life, I believe was what she told you. And there were a couple of generations of family connected to this, but she's not like an immortal native or anything like that. That according to the Salamander Magnius, the Dragon King moved into the Redshift zone on purpose. So I don't think you know the age of the Dragon King. A dragon can certainly live more than 1,000 years, but if this Dragon King is older than the Redshift, it didn't sound to you like his lair has been in the Redshift zone since before that. It sounds like he took advantage of the phenomenon and moved in later.
Well, it does make me wonder if the reason that this wall is so high is to defend against dragons because they could fly. But it also suggests then that
You know
the
what the best
wall
defense
is
against a dragon is?
what?
Build
Say
your
it again.
city underground.
Even then,
Yeah, but these are
Make the entrance small.
arrogant elves, you know. They didn't have any kind of an opposition for 1,000 years.
Well,
However,
yeah.
I'm
That's
sorry, Montaigne. Montlarian, she doesn't mean it.
um, one thing that I can say is that to the arrogant elves point, Vesoth was one of the earliest settled lands on the continent, and formed nations. Um, and historically, they say that it was the first star tower built on the continent at Ves.
yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, I
What
remember that.
what makes it interesting though is if the redshift has been going for 1,000 years, okay, um, then it's quite possible that this glass wall, maybe it's only 600 years old, which means Ves is alive and kicking. And they don't want anybody in there.
Well, if they are alive and kicking, I mean, you can see the redshift miles and
Yep.
miles away around that tower.
Yep.
So if they're alive and kicking, then that implies they'd have some kind of protection from the redshift.
Either that or they were trying to protect the rest of the world.
Right.
We don't know their motives.
This is also a piece of information that was given to you last time that might have been glossed over. But Kieran did mention that the land between here and All Saints is pleasant, grassy, rolling hills. And Holtzman mentioned that it was a lake city.
Right.
That does not seem to line up with the fact that it is currently a desert over here.
In much the same way that we have a bay, and they didn't.
Right.
Right, okay.
And there is that strange river effect that occurs at the that one keep on the coastline that you have.
Right.
It seems like it was shaved off the coastline.
Yeah, like a piece of the empire was like carved out.
Just lower level.
I kind of feel like we need about
engulfed by
a dozen of us or 20 of us
high
in
rising
different
tides.
groups going out in different places to explore this.
Well, I mean, that has been the method so far. It's just that a couple of dragons have kind of put
Yeah.
a wrench in that recently.
Slowed things down.
Yeah. Strange and unusual phenomena.
I wish our friend, our dragon friend was still around. We could pump him for more specific questions.
I'm not too sure he'd know anything.
He might not, but he might know stories that were passed down from his family.
Yeah, he was mostly aware of what was going on between Nasharala and Zoramos, who he served. He knew of the goings on of the rest of the Dragon King's armies, but he had only rarely communicated with the other princes.
Right, but he might have, going in a completely different direction, he might have heard stories passed down from parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, etc., about how things were. Stories.
Oh yeah, you guys are camping now. This is all good.
He was born from elemental fire.
Oh, I think he told you he hatched out of an egg, but
Yeah, there you go.
salamander eggs are kind of like just
All right, okay.
balls of lava.
I'm really looking forward to getting back, talking to Arissa, and
Yes,
starting
Frontline.
off on the next series of questions.
That has happened exactly twice. That someone has noticed that their world is disappearing.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just weird, right? Like, if it's an illusion, that shouldn't be happening. If it's an imprint of the past, that shouldn't be happening. But when we return, the things that we did aren't reflected in the world as far as we can tell. So
I feel like it's just an effect.
Right, it's like we were just witnesses.
Well, you haven't been just witnesses though, because
right.
Alvis Tavern won the Heroes Festival.
Right, and we helped,
Or
and
whatever.
we helped the others do their
Champion
thing
fair.
and get credit for it. You know.
Well, right. I mean, and we helped defend Orvis. We
Yeah.
or yeah,
Right.
Thesbridge. Right.
Yep.
We helped rescue the princess from the orcs.
Yep.
We've saved a couple of lives, as I pointed out, like who were able to recognize that, in a way
And
them being saved wasn't right, if that makes sense.
there's never been a situation where the people that you're interacting with are acting like you're not there and going through the motions, right?
Right.
Right.
You are acknowledged
Well,
every time you're involved.
until the shift starts happening, and then only people who
Right.
have died, like
And only the ones who died are
should
the
have
ones who
died.
can see us
exactly. I
and
feel
understand that they understand that they're dying and their world is also changing.
from Alvis Taber's idea of how the Arcana works, and through his study, Alvis Taber would assume this is just an effect of the Redshift. So we were brought back in time to relive this moment, and then everything needs to go back to normal. And the Weave has demonstrated a very flexible nature in the past. So
Brought back in time might not be the most accurate thing, because
yeah, I feel as if it's more like an image, and at best, what's happening, or maybe at worst, depending on how you feel about it. And Elvis looks to Montlaren and Naya when he says this. At best, what's happening is that the spirits are all reliving these moments, and the specific spirits that are not reliving the moment at the time of the phenomenon, the ones that were supposed to have died, get to keep on noticing us before they're taken back. There might not even be the same spirits, but just like copies of it.
well,
Sure.
however, those
Or
individuals
echoes.
would never have been in that location. Had you
Exactly.
not
That's why I'm saying that that's probably the best of what we're getting is the
Right.
evidence.
Their experience and notice that.
And specifically, what makes me hint that is the fact that when we are shifting back, it's only them who notice us, and everybody else kind of goes on doing the act.
When Ferris acknowledged what was happening, there was a moment where I believe the order of events was that Nikta disappeared, and Gakuri just kept on talking to her like she was there. and again, you all witnessed this. Ferris at this point had kind of started to question what was happening, and we know how that went. But Gakuri, who was holding Princess Sira's, disappeared before the princess, and in fact, you would have seen at that point for a few seconds just the princess floating in midair and watching Ferris have this conversation where she's very confused, and Gakuri and the princess seemed quite confused about what Ferris was talking about.
Yeah, it seems like when we're shifting back to our normal time that things are correcting themselves. Which
That has some kind of logic, though.
yeah,
That
no,
Yeah,
as
as
we
it
shift
fades
in,
back.
it's quite abrupt. But as we shift back, then there's a fade out, a fading kind of quality that
it has to
that
go
is
through
like
all
the veil becomes very thin, and those who are dying or died in that event can see it. They can see through the veil, and they understand things, and they are calm, and they can say, "Oh, make sure you get to Vess."
Well, Ferris wasn't calm.
Well, no, but there's an element of it that is a lot calmer than some might be in that circumstance. Plus, they deliver a message. There's a lot of calmness to be able to deliver a message.
I believe aware would be the best. Like they don't go to instantly being dead again. They get to fade back because everything else seems to rubber band back to the way it was. Because I'm sure even if we were to get the accurate histories that we all would desire, I still think I'm not the canonical winner of that festival.
Karen told you himself he won it.
I mean, I won it, but he can say whatever he wants.
Right, yeah, I remember.
He got to meet the little princess up close.
I got to meet the princess up close.
Yeah. That's true.
Well, the alternative could be something like we're substitutes for those people.
I personally...
We were them in another life.
Albus Tower personally defeated Kieran in one of the games, in fact.
I personally, as interesting as this effect of the weave is, like, I see this being a side project for Decus once he gets his commemorations? Sorry, whatever the word is, for being rewarded for doing something arduous and long. Once he gets his rewards, this is probably something that he would, worry about. I don't see why we should be worrying about it. It doesn't seem like our effects are doing anything. It seems like just another thing to report. I'm saying it's above our pay grade. It's like I don't think we can figure out what's going on here.
I think it's fair that we probably can't figure it out, but I also think it's fair that we can think about it. And those of us who can think about it are going to think about it.
Yeah, you guys.
And wonder and talk out loud maybe about what are the possibilities.
We're not in a big rush.
I know that. I'm not saying that.
Montlarin, I'd like you to maybe share that with the class. These ideas that you're having.
Yeah, I keep thinking about the fact that we're able to make changes, like there are two paths, and like I said, I imagine them as like two cities with a plain between them, each on their own river, and as they try to make improvements, they tap the river. Water rushes into that space and creates a mire that affects both cities, and then the other city tries to fix it. They drain the mire, they fill the ditches in, they plant new plants. That space in the middle would be constantly changing as they kept trying to make things better, as all of those interactions interfered with each other. What if that's what the Redshift is? This thought's too big for my head.
And yet, you're the one that came up with it. It's not too big. You need to give yourself more credit, Montlarin.
Most definitely. See, I was even like, that question right there brought up, like, where's the continued evidence of that change besides the redshift constantly coming back every 10 days, changing crap? Maybe this is, maybe
trying to set it back to the way it's
maybe
quote
the
supposed to be.
is a terrible side reaction, like an alchemical reaction gone wrong, and the things that it's doing is the aberrations and the not illusions, but the changes it seems to be making. That this is just a side effect from it trying to fix something constantly that it's not able to fix.
What if we're doing this wrong? What if trying to reclaim the redshift is never going to work? What if the only way to reclaim any of this space is to literally fix the past? Like, dealing with our dragon friends is maybe a distraction. Maybe we should follow the past advice and try to get to Vess as fast as we can.
The Dragon King would love for the redshift to occur in perpetuity, as far as you've been told.
Right, because it doesn't
Yeah,
really bother him.
He came there on purpose.
Right, exactly. They've worked
Well,
out
they
how to
figured
deal with
out. Yeah, they figured out a way to avoid it.
Maybe we need to find some answers in a bit of a different place. I'm wondering if the thinker actually knows a little bit more about this than he lets on. After all, he said that he would impart more knowledge to us, but we would have to bring magical gifts.
You mean the worker?
The worker, yeah.
That guy seems like a scam artist to me.
Well, I mean, I think we ought to run down every single option. There are very few of them that offer any kind of possible real knowledge for how to institute a fix. But I have to tell you, if we hadn't had this moment where we were allowed to go back in time, we never would have gotten past the glass.
Oh, no.
We'd be still standing on the other side of that glass going, I wonder what we do.
Also, out of character, you probably know that Albus only said that guy's a con artist because he wants magical items.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, it really is kind of I know that it's a really mixed bag, and I empathize with the ethical challenge of what we've gone, where we've been and done. But if it really wasn't for this time shift thing that keeps happening when we're not really looking for it, that we're able to get to the other side of this glass wall. Because without it, we can't get to Vess. We can't follow through on any of that advice they gave us unless we actually stay right here.
Well, I think that we can, if we can't, figure out a way to magically teleport across the span of the glass itself en masse, we could climb one of those mountains in theory. I mean, we don't know how tall this wall is, but
Bedeth was able to get over it.
What?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I didn't think he was ever able to get over it.
No,
when did that happen?
Towards the very top, he was able to actually kind of find a way up and over, and it seemed like it was basically a sealed cube.
Aha! That's good to know. I did not know that. Okay.
I just
Do
wonder
you have any idea how high he had to go?
Far higher than 100 feet.
Yeah.
Questions.
Right.
Okay.
He was out of range, yeah.
Questions now. Specifically when it comes to the time traveling, wibbly wobbly, Elvis Tavaways his hand stuff. We still have options to try to maybe get to Vess in our timeline, but the biggest problem with this is that all of our attempts to change anything have snapped back. Even if we get to Vess and we do anything, we'll just be given information. And I'm not saying that information is bad. We should definitely seek out Vess both in our timeline and in the other timeline if we can. We need to figure out how to cement the changes in the past that we make if we're going to be able to do that.
I think the redshift is going to continue until we fix everything.
No, most definitely. But
I
second,
agree.
it's even more important. This
But do we
doesn't
actually know what has to be fixed? I mean, really?
Redshift.
Yeah, besides the
Redshift-
Redshift itself. Yeah.
No, that's the only. The Redshift needs to be fixed.
Witch Guardian Arisa is quite confident that there is something to be fixed. Now, she's been very clear with you that that's just a hunch, a belief, an instinct, a perhaps denialist ideal hope, but she's still 100% positive.
But the most important question hasn't even been asked, and this is the one that's actually most important to us all. And that is, if we do, in theory, go back in past and fix the Redshift, that's an entire empire. 1,200 years worth of history, of imperial history, will be changed. We will not be the same people when we come back. In fact, the world will be changed when we come back and fix this issue. I do not know if I want to do that. I would might rather this entire area stay Redshift as a place for adventure and story than change the likelihood of my birth.
I mean, what would you even know?
No.
Now I have just
You wouldn't-
brought up the implication.
Yeah, I know. And
I
that's what I'm saying.
suppose I'm a
Would you
little
even know, though?
less worried about that myself. My people reached out to the Cradian Empire. It wasn't the other way around. Neither the
But the
people of
Cranian
Vess.
Empire only came into being the major superpower on the continent because Vesoth was no longer the major superpower on the continent.
I
Right.
don't
And when did that happen?
believe anybody from Vess
about
ever made it
1,000
to my
years ago.
homeland either.
So all of this stuff happened 1,000 years ago. And in the meantime, it's been like, what, everybody's a vegetable?
Well, no, the Cradian Empire has expanded as it does over that 1,000 years. It's just Vest that's like this, right?
Yeah, correct. It's basically been, for most people, out of sight, out of mind. For the scholarly and safety-minded, it's been, well, we can't do anything about it, and it doesn't seem like it's expanding, so let's just kind of do what we can to hope and maybe keep investigating it. Maybe we can get in there someday.
I'm just saying that the entire kingdom that we are currently working for might not even exist if we fix this problem for this empire.
That's a very reasonable guess. The Holy Cranian Empire was a rather not small but up and coming empire. They were neighbors with Vess, and there have been some dialogues that you've had with the people in Vess, even Holtzman's group, who are all from the Cranian Empire, who have acknowledged that Vesoth was the. Sorry, I said Vess a few times. I meant Vesoth. Vesoth was a much more powerful nation at the time.
Yeah, exactly. Alvis Taver would be worried, like, seriously about the very existence of his being and character if this empire was allowed to, come forth. He would bring it up to the party as an ethical issue because that's not only my life that I'm worried about, but that's everybody here except for maybe the one who comes from the land of elements. So, Nimbus, I'm sorry, you're a very wise man, but I don't know if your opinion affects our empires since it's not your people who are under effect.
And Montlaurent, on that nice enough folk point, I mean, you've even literally talked to the Queen and King a couple of times now, and they both seemed intimidating, but were eminently polite and did not seem to disrespect the people they were talking to, who were, commoners for all intents and purposes.
Right. Well, we haven't met any rebels unless you count orc pirates. So
Correct. And even the Queen and the Princess at Midoro. Midoro was a tiny little village on the edge of the nation, and the queen and it was literally like the queen was hanging out at a fucking big barbecue, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Company party.
So yeah, they had a whole private guard there with them, but the Queen Arcella herself was kind of just strolling around, mingling with the common folk. At that time when you saw her, you haven't seen Queen Arcella too frequently since then. You've seen King Erditus a couple of times, and you've seen Princess Cirrus a couple of times. But Cirrus is a kid, and King Erditus, the only time you've really spoken to him was at when he encountered Holtzman a few hours ago for you. And he was very much all business in this situation for obvious reasons.
This is not even an attack on the character of the Empire in question. The fact that the Empire engages in interactions with seafaring pirates is enough to even consider a history line where, again, another pirate nation rose up and they felt like the resources of our nascent empire is just what they need in order to, bring back, their own power and destroy the pirates. And then our entire empire's history has changed. That's thousands of lives altered for maybe the worse.
Maybe we'll have a chance to investigate this again. I actually sincerely hope we do, but I will make the observation that Holtzman and his group were all from the Cradian Empire. It seems at a bare minimum that they had some form of open border with their neighbor.
That they did. There was a pretty common through line of the sort of path you would take to get to Vess would be from the southwest through Orvis, through Chose, and onward. And that's the path that Holtzman and his companions were taking.
Fantastic. Now that that both empires are under duress of pirate threat, the liberation and the refortification of our nascent empire is much easier now that our borders are open.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm just saying the fact that they were cooperating already implies that they may have throve more richly together.
The two lands were quite friendly with one another. Now, this is known history. A little under 1,000 years before the Redshift is deduced to be started. The Holy Cradian Empire.
You're writing this down, right?
Cradian and Vessos did have a holy war, and that did culminate in the divine lineage of Cradia naming itself the Emperor Saint of an independent nation, which became the empire that you know today. So, yes, there was battle in the past, but 700 years later, that was all in the past. And
so relatively good relationships, and that's the only instance where maybe something questionable happened.
Right, because the Holy Cradian Empire thus originated as a piece of Vesov that eventually split off, became independent. This has happened a few times, actually, on the continent. There was I don't think it was the Cranian Empire that split into Alberna. That was Alberna that split out of Kawaja. But thanks again, Mr. Ambergreen.
I was thinking it.
But yeah, since that small sort of almost civil war, um, things returned to normalcy, and things were okay after the boundaries were established and things settled down. People reset. Again, 700 years later, an elf lifetime, and generations of other species later, um, things were calm and friendly.
I see this as an absolute win.
But Albus Taver's suggestion that things would change if Vesalt had been around for the past 1,000 years is uh, not an inaccurate guess.
That is
Uh,
all.
if Vesoth had never disappeared, the Holy Cradian Empire may not have been able to gain as much influence as it did, as it filled a power vacuum.
Of course, that makes sense. That's reasonable.
There may have been other changes due to the relationships between Vesoth and the other nearby nations. Vesoth's relation with Kotara that has been war torn for hundreds of years down south. Um, all sorts of other things. The Halcyon Kingdom becoming independent may have been different. Who knows? A lot of things that currently happen in the world originate from the Holy Cradian Empire and its influence. If it didn't have that influence, all sorts of things could change. Or perhaps everything would be exactly the same and you'd just be named Veshans instead. For those of you who are actually from the Empire.
I, for some reason, have a feeling that it would perhaps return to existence only the areas that are within the radius of the redshift, that it wouldn't alter the modern history and the modern timeline to fit what Vesoth would have done over that period of time, but instead only encapsulate what they would have done within this area, or that everything is kind of frozen in time from the point of the redshift, and other things that may have gotten captured in the redshift between now and then will potentially manifest in some way or not. Obviously, the risk is more for you folks, so but ultimately I think either fixing or finding some way to make it survivable is really the goal here. That seems like it's ultimately what the commission wants to do, and any relics and artifacts found along the way are just a bonus.
They belong in a museum.
Maybe if they're of any power, they probably belong in our
hands
commission's
of
use
these
first. Has anybody at any other location or any of our other crews experienced any of these time distortions?
No, you've been the only team that has been involved in these, aside from the people who have discovered a few of the ones initially. And obviously, the one at Orbis was very close by, so everybody kind of saw that one. But in those cases, the Brigadier was very strict about who could actually interact with it because she didn't want to cause some kind of catastrophe. Or in the case of Orvis, she didn't want to send a whole commission rolling in there looking like an army and cause a big panic in the city,
Right.
which was probably a wise choice.
Yeah. Not that we couldn't have sent a few more information scouts in to try to gather information and notes, but maybe next time if we're in that proximity of an event with the commission. Personally, I don't think the next time that's going to happen is till we figure out how we can get around this glass.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it'll happen in Alsanes or the ruins thereof.
Well, we need to figure out how to do it. The fact that Badath got over it is helpful.
Over it, but couldn't go into it. It was, again, as if it were a cube.
That is not quite correct. I
No?
don't know if you're misremembering, but Badath would have to go very, very, very high to get over this wall. And I don't know if you would have commanded him to come back down at a certain point, or how far up you would have told him to go.
I told him to go up as far as he can and try to get in.
Got it. Well, let me do a little quick bit of research.
He's still flying up right now as you're talking.
Owl can fly. How fast? Okay. Fast and high. Oh, okay. Birds can fly up to 10,000, 20,000 feet. Got it. In that case, so it's not a problem for Badath to actually get high enough, which is what I was curious about as an owl. It would have taken quite some time. I'm not going to do the math on his speed right now because I don't want to. But it would have taken more than a few minutes for Badath to reappear, gliding down on the opposite side of the wall to make contact, and you would be able to reconnect telepathically with him. On the far side of the wall.
I see. So there is potential that we can use the mountains to get in. That means they may have already then been picked clean by the dragon family.
I'm just looking for a way in. I don't care if they're picked clean.
Well, it'll probably be coming from the mountains then. We might want to think about investing in climbing gear.
Yeah, I was also thinking that if that wall is wide enough, it may the expedition itself, I guess is what I'm trying to say, may want to build some sort of lift or platform so that we don't have to keep going up a mountain pass and climbing a mountain to get around it.
That's reasonable.
It just seems like you could climb up, to the top of it at the mountain, then walk across it, and then build an apparatus that
Some
sits on
kind
top
of an
it.
horizontal elevator.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking, you could literally put a lift so that you could winch up, a platform on one side and then winch, bring everything over and winch it down to the other side, like you might to traverse a lock. Do you have canals?
I know what you mean.
Notice he's literally standing in front of an empty canal. It's But my point is we may want to set up a base here, and we may want to do it by setting up a
Yes, I agree.
An outpost on either side of the wall with a lift to get you over.
It is a very intact location. Obviously optimal for a new outpost. Yeah, a lift situation would certainly depend on how high this wall is and how.
Yeah, we have to know what the limitations are of a lift system.
Right.
I almost wonder then if it would be more advantageous to try to take the fort of Zoramos and Nasharala, either by defeating them or getting in and interrupting the teleportation circle. But that would then allow us to have kind of a place where we can go into the mountains from, and if we want to build another base up there, that could be useful. But
Yeah, I'm not sure that we want to take on the entire dragon clan as an enemy, because what we want to do is get information and get to Vess.
Oh yeah, you've already taken them on. Don't worry.
Yeah, I mean we're an enemy. But I understand what you mean. There are several other princes and princesses that we don't know
There's a
who
whole
may not
family.
consider us a threat yet, and
Right.
so we might do wise to minimize our impact.
Please hold.
So-
I'm gonna go turn on my heater real quick. Be right back.
oh, actually, that'd be a good time. Give me just a moment. I'm gonna go grab something. I'll be back.
Bio break.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I guess I'm gonna go take a leak. BRB.
Okay, I've returned. Bio break. Excellent. All right, I'm back with fresh water.
Welcome back.
I'm back.
Hi there. Okay. I think at least half of us are back now.
Yeah, half.
Whew. Took the knee brace off too.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
All this talk about elevators has Alvis Talver thinking about the lifts in his minds.
Oh,
Those
I
went deep.
apologize. I want to correct something I said earlier. The first tower,
What's that?
the first Star Tower was not built in Vest. It was built in Ascalon in Kalaja.
Yeah.
And Kalaja was the first nation of the continent that was colonized. So, just a little specificity. I messed that up as I was reading through the history books.
That must be fun to read through stuff you wrote.
Yeah,
I'm back.
do it
I'm a
sometimes.
fan.
Do it all the time. Gotta do it to edit.
I reread like half my fanfic a couple weeks ago. It was nice.
Cool.
I remembered
I've been
came up with
revisiting my Hopus scenes over in Rift,
Oh yeah.
wondering if they really have any value at all, but
You
it
know
was
what?
fun to make them.
I've been meaning to send you a game that I saw that I think is your style specifically. Let me get you the Steam page for it while we're waiting for everybody to get back.
Okay.
I'm back.
Welcome back. Okay, I think we have everybody, but I'll send this to you in DM.
I mean, if it was April Fool's, I would probably say, "Oh, you're sending a link to Townscaper. Let me send one too."
I already have that
I
damn
know.
game,
That's why I'm yes.
but I like the idea, Neuro. That was your idea of using Townscaper to create the town, and then using another app that I don't have to create import the NPC list that Verity made.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I've been looking into World Anvil recently, but map making software is something entirely different. If I can make a good map, though, I could get it in World Anvil, put all the information on it, put the places you guys have actually been on it, throw in like sub maps of the other.
Why do you think I
Oh.
would like this game?
Dungeon
It's a
Alchemist.
horror game, not a building game.
Dungeon
it's like
Alchemist is the tool I'm looking for making the levels.
First person point and click. It is horror though. So
Yeah, horror's not my thing. I liked Revival because of everything else but the horror.
oh, okay. In that case, I'll send you a link to a playthrough of it. Maybe you'd prefer that.
Okay.
To be able to appreciate it. But that's for later. So where were we in our campsite conversations?
We haven't done this whole campsite conversation thing in like a really long time. So this is great. This is great.
Action-packed for a while.
That's good. I like that it catches us all up and sort of like, oh yeah, okay, these are things I know.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
as always, you guys, if you have anything that you want me to clarify, that's information that your characters would have about things we've encountered in the past, feel free to ask because I can give you all of that information.
Well, Amber Green is largely a tourist.
That's true.
Largely a what?
A tourist.
Yeah.
He was
Naya
like
is too,
he wanted to have the most epic adventure he could so he could write, the most moving epic what do they call it when there's a story on your album, like your
concept album.
Correct, exactly. So and the Redshift captured his attention, so he's going to write this epic concept album about the Redshift. As a tribute to his muse.
I think Naya is starting to realize that she's basically been on a journey back to her home.
Well, I mean, yeah, Naya is well into the point where she's kind of found her honor, for lack of a better term.
She's also found some identity. She no longer feels like she has the need to apologize for being a druid instead of a warrior or a paladin or what her family expected of her.
I mean, yeah, at this point, there's even this probably feeling of if you went back, you could be like, hey, look at all this stuff I did.
Yeah.
Cool, right? Like,
Yeah,
maybe they
like
take
she
you
wouldn't
back.
have a need to apologize for being different.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she's kind of coming around to that. She's kind of been looking for a family everywhere else.
Because as always, she's a member of one of the most invaluable teams of the commission.
Yeah.
So
So she could stay with the commission forever, you know.
That's kind of what
There's
Lauren's been thinking.
there's kind of a nostalgia for being able to go home and say, "Hey, I wasn't a complete fuck up." Well, and I think we
Good.
all have that at some level.
Absolutely. Lawrence kind of like worked his way out of that. In fact, like he's come to the point where he's realized he's kind of better off not living in his family's shadow where everybody thinks he sucks and
Yeah.
he's not really worth anything.
Wow, you're right, noble elf.
Well, he's literally thinking about not going back.
Naya's been
Here
gone
I'm
long
dead.
enough that she's actually looking at circling all the way back around to see what it is. But she's also getting to be that age. She's about 26 and a half, where, the biological clock starts ticking too.
Thinking about the nest, thinking about eggs.
Yeah, it's like if you're going to have babies, now's the time to do them. Either that or give it up. Yeah, well, I don't know, sir. You're going to have to fill me in.
Oh, no.
On how dragon, yeah.
No, I was just going to say, as a dragonborn, you do get to specifically pick what color you want your kids to be.
But I mean, the lifespan of a dragonborn is not that much longer than a human.
I think might be a little bit shorter. I forget specifically, but they're around the same.
Yeah, it's about the same, but actually a little bit longer. And so she's got to if she's going to have kids, she needs to get with the program because there is a biological clock.
So they develop a lot faster than humans do, but they only live to be around 80 years old on average.
Right. So she's got to relate to that, and the clock ticks on, and so it's a little bit of a hormonal impetus for her, even though it's subtle.
Sure.
It's not something that was obvious at all. It'd be easy to suppress, but there are times when it's not active, which are very few. But like sitting around the campfire tonight and talking is reminiscent of those times when she can relate to having options and maybe going home.
She's almost looking at, after this is all done, straight up retiring.
Yep.
I mean, if you continue your pursuits, I understand that druids are able to become fairly timeless beings.
They are, but she also has some family things to resolve. So the question is, if she goes home and is still rejected, as she expects that she would be, then they might, maybe they wouldn't reject her at all. But if they do reject her, then she can just go and turn into another version of grandmother. That would make her really happy. So she has a plan B. But there's also children and all those things that are in the mix. Like she's been gone since she was 15 years old. And she's 26.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, she's got to circle back around and give that closure and find out whether or not she's going to have a life with Dragonborn or she's going to have a life alone.
She also has, ample friends at this point. Obviously, everybody here, the rest of the commission,
right?
Any other people in the commission she's made friends with.
But when the biological clock ticks, the hormones tend to make it really difficult to think about options. To think outside the box.
I'm just mentioning in the case of perhaps being rejected from home again. There's
Yep.
always
She's got a plan B. She's got a plan C.
just come back out here, right?
Yep, that's right.
Or
She's
wherever-
always got
wherever
some
the people on
worthy,
mission have gone after
some
that.
worthy thing to do. Yep.
Yeah, you doubt Dex is the type of guy to retire after all this is done. He'll probably write a few books and then move on to some other project.
Yeah, got to figure out some next thing to do,
And
Right. Something equally epic. Totally.
Well, and Naya's really got this
Captain
whole
Van
science thing happening.
Van will be looking for
Science.
weird shit as weird as this until the day he dies, which for a beholder, who knows when the hell that is.
Totally.
Until the day he accidentally dreams himself into a death tyrant, I suppose.
I don't know that would change his alignment, though. I think you just be like,
Maybe.
cool,
Well,
I'm
maybe not.
undead now.
Right? Oh!
We'll have
What's
to see
this?
what happens in another few centuries, I guess.
Right, and Naya could have a similar experience with turning into a tree. And 1,000 years from now, she'd be like, so, let me tell you about the time.
Let me tell you about the time I had to grow a bunch of roots around a death tyrant because
Right.
he's still in there.
I mean, that's actually in the druid tree. To turn, I mean, sorry, no pun intended there.
That's
That
funny.
was my bad. My best puns are unintentional. But in
All
the
of them.
druid list, turning into a tree is part of that. So she can go be the druid version of grandmother, which is what she wishes if she's not going to do the whole family thing.
That's
So she got a plan B, she got a plan C, but she knows that she kind of needs to start thinking about resolving the family thing and finding out.
Oh, actually, I did just actually look at it. You don't quite become immortal, but you age 10 times slower.
Right.
At very high level of
Yep.
druid. So you'd just be a very, very old dragonborn. You'd live as long as an elf at that point.
Yes. And she would have stories to tell, and she would have students, and she would have value to the world. And she might not go seeking out anybody.
Yeah,
But
I mean, at that point, the Redshift would be your first journey.
Sure. I mean, she could just find her own grove and do her own thing, and all good. She doesn't get bored easily.
Yeah.
Anyway.
What about Alvis Tavern? He'll just go back to the club, probably.
Yeah, once I'm, called back to the club.
Look for that promotion up to overseer, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I'm looking for the cushy life and get as much money as possible with a big old name and glory, and then maybe, yeah, I'll do stuff like that.
Pay off that student debt, then retire, and then.
Oh no retirement. Master says retirement's for people who want to be lazy.
Well, right. Retirement from the job. Switch over
to be some other job.
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense.
Oh, always
you start
working.
your own club.
Lauren, I was going to ask, what about your brother's body that we still have?
Yeah, you may recall a while ago at this point, like almost a year ago, I was beginning to make inquiries on how I might be able to send it back.
Yeah.
Well, my
Home.
club deals in corpse transportation and removal and mummification and display.
Right.
It
We may
seems
be
like
talking
the
about
extraplanar part is rather important to this.
We may be talking about different things here.
Well, I might. I would have to get back to you on that. There might be strings that I could pull.
Yeah, I believe we concluded was what we concluded was that you'll probably have to do some work, Montlarin, to um, get a wizard-like dex to uh, study you properly and figure out where you came from and
Right.
connect to that realm, which is um, honestly, compared to a lot of the shit you've seen in the Redshift zone, seems like one of the more doable projects.
Also mundane.
Totally.
Yeah. It's
Science.
it's probably gonna be you like chilling out in a town for a few weeks while Dex sits in a lab. And he'll send you a letter one day and be like, "Hey, we got it. Time to go home." And then you just walk in and he snaps his fingers, you go home, right?
But Monty, are you sure you don't want to get Bet embalmed?
He's
Well, I
already
mean, he's
petrified.
pretty well preserved. Yeah.
Yeah.
And kind of jacked up, if I remember right.
But I mean, we could add gold leaf to the face.
Kintsurugi, your brother?
Don't you want to inlay some ivory teeth where the old ones might have gone dull, so that he is always on the most beautiful display?
I think Bet would hate that.
Feel like that might send the wrong message.
Yes. So you wish to plastify them with our chemical options. That way, so he looks more realistic and human-like. We could even pose him doing his favorite thing. That was hunting, right?
I don't.
He has blades for arms.
Literally made of stone right now.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any making a relic of him that's going to do him any justice. Is kind of what I've gathered over the time since his passing. So no, I see where you're going there, but I think
This is just joking.
preserved in the current state is probably about the safest way to go. I have no idea, honestly, if it's been able to halt the aging process in such a way that reincarnation may be possible. I don't know if reincarnating from what became of him would even be viable.
Yeah, has not been tested. Only thing you know, again, this is going back to old information. The only thing you know about resurrection and regenerative abilities is that from some tests that were run on the Brigadier when she was first shifted, um, they determined that it's very likely that if they did something like amputate her arm and then attempt to cast the regeneration spell on her, it would just grow back as in its current state.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right, that this is what her body is now. That's why reincarnation is specifically the thing that I wonder about, because that doesn't try to repair this body, it simply puts them anew in a different body.
Interesting idea.
If I remember right, too, Montlarin thought that it was what his brother had become was an abomination.
If you recall, I was originally convinced that Morio had done it to him.
That's right. Yeah, I just remember you being particularly taken aback.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely was not what I was expecting. And it was like in a sort of terrible and dark way, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Though that did remind me, Alvastaver actually, after all of this, is more interested in finding out ways to continue to work with Lucette.
Say again at the last part.
Continue to work with Lucette.
Yeah, we'll have to see what she does after this is all over. I mean, she's a
That's a pretty hard crush.
What are you talking about? This is all professional.
She's a career soldier, and she came out here on kind of a
And Alvis totally respects that.
They needed a leader, somebody who was kind of tactically and organizationally minded.
You could be a career soldier all the better so that, we can work our connections together and then become the power couple that will eventually rule over the empire.
Right.
Together, Lucent and Alvis Taver, we have the power.
That definitely sounds like what the Brigadier wants to do.
No, it's not that she'll be actively taking power. It's just over the years, she'll just amount the responsibilities slowly and surely. I will help. And then when she is the public figure face of the entire empire, I will work right below her shadow and no one will see me. And I will be safe and she will be safe
Are you
too.
talking about under the
I
desk?
see. Just to the left of her knee.
Yes.
I wouldn't
Sorry.
be surprised if she gets some sort of illusory form of attire that will make her look as if she was in her original state. So that way she can go about life and not face harassment. And every once in a while, when a fight breaks out, someone gets thrown through a wall inexplicably.
Personal goal of mine to figure out how to help relieve her of said ailment. I will pull as many strings in my club as I can.
She seems like she's pretty fine with the arm, honestly. Just, the unsightly appearance is going to make it a little hard to go back and not get
It's
hassled
also a
for
good
it.
test. When you're looking at people and they can't hardly look at you, that's a good test of their character.
She has not. You've never seen her once shy away from the idea of having the body that she has right now, and certainly doesn't seem ashamed by it to any degree.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Well, has she been back to the Empire since it happened, or has she been out here the whole
no, she's
time?
been living here. But you know that the thing that has caused her. Well, you may be familiar with one of the things that causes her some torment is the fact that physical activity is rather difficult for her because extended intense activity has a history now with her of causing some internal problems as the crystals sort of interfere with the
She's got
flesh.
redshift fibro.
I know that she has
Yeah,
rejected
really.
the idea of using the uh, crown or tiara that we found that makes somebody always refreshed and rested. Something maybe a little more acute that prevents somebody from being fatigued
Oh
from
no!
strenuous
Let
activity would
let me
help.
be more specific. This is not fatigue. In fact, her monster arm does give her immense strength. It's
I thought it was more like the body is being torn apart by the part of the body that
that's
is
correct.
unfortunate.
If um she keeps in shape, but if she um gets into serious combat, if she tries to, um go hiking, do a forced march, that sort of thing, like do these activities that you are able to do sort of as a matter of fact, um, this can cause damage. And that's why, for most of the time out here in the Redshift zone, she has been relegated to office work.
It's also one of the reasons why Alvis Taver thinks he's the perfect assistant for her. Out of the way, tidy, and very, very small, and has a magical hand. So has 3 hands to help instead of just 2.
Ooh, has a magical hand.
And
Behave.
Somebody was going to say.
Oh, behave.
what one of the perhaps one of the first times you've actually seen her legitimately frustrated was when you returned to the or when you were working on the moat last week, and uh essentially Kuromizawa and Angela had to hold the brigadier down to prevent her from losing her mind out of boredom and trying to help with the digging all day long. Because if they let her do that, she'd go an 8-hour day of digging and then fall over when it was all done.
Probably not
So
the healthiest.
admirable. But so very admirable. Swoon.
But she does what she can. She lifts a heavy thing or throws a tree, and then they make her go sit on a rock for a few hours so she doesn't hurt herself.
I'll bother her for those few hours just to entertain.
It is the first time she's really been on the front line in a while too. So this is kind of the first time you've been able to get that circumstance.
Yes.
I will remind you though, if you recall when the insects attacked Fort Maricus and the Brigadier did join the battle, you did watch her stumble as though drunk at the end of it, cough up a lot of blood, and then collapse and fall unconscious for a day, even though she had barely been scratched by any of the insects.
I remembered. I QQ'd.
So,
That's
there are definitely some difficulties with the effects of the shifting.
perhaps not fatigue, then something that would be instantly and long-term regenerative, like something a troll would have.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Troll hybridization would certainly fix something like that. Hopefully you don't.
He already has this
weird though.
Hopefully you don't also get the thing where trolls just end up growing extra body parts because their body does that.
Probably not that as the method of providing regeneration, but there's other creatures that regenerate. I'm sure if there's going to be some approach to do it, it would be trying to magically replicate that process in, again, some form of attire that can be worn constantly to provide it.
Sure.
All right then. Anything else we want to talk about before we start heading back home? Oh, in some of those
Have we
overgrown.
talked all through the night?
No, I
It's
suppose
only
not.
been about 3 hours so far.
I guess in some of those overgrown gardens we saw, perhaps we can find some plants that would be useful for additional defense, like I was talking about earlier.
Someone's at my door. I'll be right back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you wanted to, kind of on your way out in the morning, look through some of those gardens or what might have been small parks. You could certainly spend a little bit of time doing that on your way out.
Yeah, I'd like to look through as much as possible before we must go.
So I suppose if it seems pretty calm and quiet, we could actually kind of take rounds, like 2 people at a time, kind of checking some different areas out, and everyone else stay back if that would be okay, or are we all just going to kind of mosey around as a group and then come back to where we want to camp?
Would you do that all through the night? Because
No.
it is.
That's why I was
Like
thinking
I
about
said,
taking turns doing it.
Past sunset, when past sunset before you navigated your way to the wall. So if you're going to do this, I would assume it would be in the morning.
That would probably make more sense.
easier to see too.
Yep.
All right. Well then,
Okay, well, before we go to sleep, who's taking watch tonight? And do we need to? And then in the morning, we probably need to hit the road by, what, 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock?
Yeah, I mean, 8-hour marching day as usual is usually the
Yeah,
plan. I
I'm
think.
well,
making it up as I go with regard to time.
magic writing day, but yes.
Right.
Well, I only need 4 hours of sleep, so I'm happy to do watch tonight.
I also wanted to do a watch because I wanted to do some digging in the sand.
Well, sand's on the other side of the wall, right?
I
Yes,
thought there
it
was
is.
sand on both sides.
No.
Oh,
No, the side you are on is quite clean of sand.
it's amazing though. But we'll do some poking around then.
All right.
Maybe get rid of the last bear trap in my freaking inventory.
You want to just leave a bear trap here?
Yeah, we're coming back, aren't we?
Probably.
Well,
How old is this bear? I
um,
don't know. I think it's still kind of
we
warm.
haven't figured out how.
Yeah, but we're gonna come back here, right?
That's the
Well, I
plan.
mean, we got to get
but
to
we
the other
don't
side
know
of the wall,
how.
so
So,
Wait, I don't
I
actually
mean,
know
you
if
can
I-
leave something here, but it might not be the thing to leave if you expect to be back right away.
Oh yeah, that's why you would leave a bear trap, and I actually don't know if I actually have another bear trap.
So you're
I
gonna
wanna
catch
see.
some poor raccoon and it's just gonna lie there dead until we come back, huh?
Well, and then we get to use the bits. I do have this wyvern egg though. You
Or
want
we
to
leave it so it's not set.
Unless the raccoon redshifts into a bear trap monster.
Right.
Was
So we
this
could just
wyvern
leave
egg
it
part of the-
unset.
I don't actually have a wyvern egg, do
Oh, what?
I? This wyvern egg is
no,
not
faded away.
It faded
No,
away,
no,
right?
It explicitly disappeared, as did all the flowers that you had.
How far away was that spot in comparison to us during?
So you were able to go there, climb to the location, and then get back to Chose in the span from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m.
That's a long time.
Yeah. So it's a full day there and back.
Damn it! I can't do that during a night's wash.
Although you could probably make it up faster now that you know where the location is, if you wanted to revisit that area.
I would totally love to recheck that area.
It was
Alone?
not in the middle of the night, I assume. Yeah, you all wake up. He's long gone. Yeah, it was a couple hexes southeast in the mountains.
I want my wyvern egg.
I mean, that was like 1,000 years ago, buddy.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
be more
but-
inclined to see if the flower survived and bring some of those back for Soriana to see if she can make a greater healing potion or something.
That's also what I had in mind. But I mean, wyverns, traditional grounds of mating and stuff. And come on, you have a horse.
He's like when they're when they're born there, they always come back to the same place.
I have an illusory horse for an hour.
I was talking about Mon. We should check for the flowers, medicine, and the wyvern egg. But for the flowers and the medicine.
Do you think you and I could take a wyvern alone?
But of course.
I suppose the better question, do you think you can get across whatever's happened to that gap in 1,000 years?
Huh.
Do you think you can take a nest of wyvern, you and I alone?
That's why we really don't want to like take them on.
National breeding ground.
Look at these mountains, man. Look at me. If I just take off this golden attire, I blend in like, and so I just go in all sneaky like they don't even notice me because I'm as big as the egg. And then when one of their eggs goes missing, it's that rock over there took my egg.
You know, if
What could
something happened to
possibly
you,
go
we'd
wrong?
probably have to recruit Sharp into the Aces party.
And you know what? That would probably be a good choice because he is only second best to me.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take a pass on this one, man. I like the idea of coming back, though. I think we should just do it as a group when we come back.
Well, sure.
Yeah, to be fair, because of the little time warp we hit, this Redshift kind of came at us a lot sooner than they usually do. So, with the time we normally make to get out here, we would definitely have a few days to stump around.
I believe we should be on our way after we do the other things then.
Yeah, check in around the gardens
Yep.
if there's anything useful. And I guess while we're
Would that
doing
be like
that,
a nature check or a survival check?
Investigation.
Let's make it a nature check.
all right, I'll help Naya out with
specifically-
this.
Okay. So then Naya, if you make the roll, you'd get advantage. But tell me what you're looking for.
We're looking for something again that the fact that a creature's on fire wouldn't nullify or would potentially amplify its dangerous effects, such as some sort of flowers or small tree that, if lit on fire, produces a toxic sap. Or perhaps a sort of tougher, thicker than a bramble sort of thing that will grow and be fairly sharp, such that they can get close to it, they can touch it, they won't burn it immediately, and it'll have a chance to kind of sting them and stick them as they try to get through.
And the reason why I wanted to roll investigation is because I'm interested in seeing how in this place.
Damn!
I'm interested in seeing how this place is still.
I rolled
garden.
terrible tonight.
Roll it
Like-
again.
You get one more, though.
I know it's like an overgrown old garden, or maybe even
Yeah.
something else, but I want to see what makes this spot relatively more fertile than the rest of the area. Why is it isolated here?
I suppose it's a testament to the walls and structuring that the things haven't overgrown the entire city over 1,000 years. Roll one more time, you have an advantage.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Hey, that's more
There we
like
go.
it.
I mean, I got 3 points in it, for God's sake.
Yeah. So, looking for things that would be fire resistant or fire toxic. I mean, most of what you're going to find in these, just kind of strolling through Chose on the way back, maybe taking a different route than you did the first time, or revisiting the gardens that you saw. Most of what you're seeing is like weeds, small brushes, tall grass, a couple trees here and there.
Pretty typical desert stuff.
The area you're in is fairly dry, but it's more akin to the sort of mild open field climate that was just between here and the forest to the southwest. It's not really what you'd expect to find in a desert proper.
Okay.
But as far as like something like toxic sap goes, you don't find anything here that would match that criteria. As far as flame resistant goes, again, you're not able to find anything like transplantable at the moment. Maybe if you had more time, you'd be able to look more closely or check additional places here. But you think most of the stuff in this area would probably burn pretty quickly.
Gotcha. Well, maybe we'll find something in the woods on the way back.
You have something specific that you're looking for?
Either some sort of plant that explodes with poisonous fumes, or something very tough, very spiky. There's some trees that exist out there that they're basically just spiked all over. If
Like
they're
what I can produce
if
on
they're
difficult terrain or spiked earth?
but something that would be able to get overgrown by additional castings of the overgrowth spell or grow plants.
Okay.
But it would have to be something that it's not just going to light on fire and increase fire, because they don't care about fire. Maybe the Fomorians do, but they're not going to stay around very long. They're fairly large. It's trying to get something that before they meet the water, they hit something really rough, and that kind of makes it hard for them to try to leap across. Ultimately, something that can snag them and make them fall in would be the best, but I don't think there's any living thorny vines that would be available for us to collect, and B, safe to deal with. Sure, grandmother would know about exactly the sort of plant if there's any in her domain, but I don't know.
It'd have to be partially sentient.
Yep. I don't know if she'd be willing to give it up as a
No, I don't know that she would.
defense against fiery creatures. Well, we'll see what we see. Obviously, mushrooms aren't going to work, as we've talked about. They're things that grow from the earth, but not necessarily plants.
That is true.
Okay.
While they were looking for the plants, was I able to or can I roll an investigation to suss out why this overgrown garden is still maintained here? Or not maintained, but still here?
Um,
I'm kind of like looking for either canals or a spring, or like I'm trying to investigate why
I see.
this garden is fertile. Why is this area like this?
Yeah. Give me. That's gonna be nature.
Still nature? All right, I'll still do it just because it's what I want to do. I didn't get my 5 points.
Yeah, sorry. That's still
Oh,
good.
Nice roll.
I didn't need it.
There, if you look closely in the shadowed alleyways, in some alcoves in the aqueducts or canals, you can see evidence of precipitation around the city here. So you imagine this place probably still gets rain now and then, which would then
Interesting.
all of the plant life and wildlife that lives here.
I still got the engineering information I want to lead to my next question. With the canals and all of that stuff, is there any indication of it running under or around or somewhere in the mountains? Or under the glass wall?
So I imagine it might be possible to see another canal that is itself cut through by the wall.
Interesting.
But what you would have seen leaving the city in the past would have been the rivers and aqueducts sourced from the mountains.
I think that's our way into the city. There is a spring in the mountains that we might be able to find.
Okay.
You mean there's a way to get across the wall? Go
Yeah.
under it, basically.
Do
Yeah.
we go under it?
I'm not exactly sure, but I think
How do
if
we
we
test that?
The best way to
aqueducts
test
are
that is to find the source of their canal, to drop something that might fall down that and have somebody here wait for it to arrive.
The canals are 10, 15 feet deep. But as
Yeah,
far
we
as
might
you
not
know,
even notice.
the wall of glass goes deeper than that into the earth.
Yeah.
So it would block that anyway.
Yeah. Damn it. Okay.
But
That's a good idea, Elvis.
finding a water source or what might have been originally the water source for these things before it dried up, perhaps, is a consideration.
Yeah. So it's not nearly as great as it was before, but it still stands that there might be an ancient plumbing system or aqueduct system in the mountains that will let us get across and might lead into another canal into the city and not just this one. There might be a way in via the waterworks. That's all I'm pointing out.
We'll have to come back when we've got more time to test all this out.
Yeah.
Well, we need a plan for how to get around the glass wall anyway, because we can't get out of here without it.
All right. And I think with that, it may be a good time to cut back to RSS Tower, assuming that is the destination.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, some digging in the mountains might be a good idea to maybe figure how to get around the glass wall. Anyway, we'd know if we crossed the mountains that we would be on the other side of the glass wall, just geographically. Just having this conversation while we're getting back.
Yeah. A couple days later, you're back before the Redshift.
Okay, so I have a question. How
yeah.
did we get around the glass wall? Since
We
we
were
were
never
on the
on the
other-
other side of it.
Yeah.
I thought we
never.
were.
No. It was always in front of us. We never got inside.
Yeah, you've been on the southwest side of the glass wall this whole time.
Oh, my bad. Okay.
No problem.
Well, you might have been confused because the one time we did cross it was in the dream state.
No, you didn't.
Oh, we still didn't? Okay, never mind. I was wrong too.
You didn't see it there, but you did not cross where it would have been.
So okay.
Okay. Yeah, I thought we crossed it. Okay. That
My
changes
mistake if I
things.
implied that.
Changes my thinking. Okay.
Yeah, so basically what happened was you guys were on the southwest side of it going into the city. Before you reached it, you encountered the Holtzman and friends, and afterward you returned to that same spot, so you would have still been southwest of it. later then.
So it was a kind of a magical teleportation, because we were inside the city.
The wall bisects the city basically in half. You had maybe gone 25% into the city before you met Holtzman.
Okay.
So halfway to the wall, which is itself halfway through the city.
All right. Oh, that changes my thinking. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. You, over the next couple of days, do make it back in time before the Redshift reaches you, and you're able to get into the safety of the obelisk. Work is still being done on the fortification of the moat to make it paneled, essentially. So everybody still here has been continuing to work on that. Kromizawa is the first one to notice you all coming in, and his head is poking out from inside the moat, and he sees you, and he waves. He shouts, "They're back! They're all back!"
Of course we're back.
He says, "Well, I didn't doubt you'd come back." There were 2 first waves, though, this time.
Yeah, strange thing happened.
We went back in time again.
I'm writing a song about it. There's a hook. It goes, "You gotta get back in time." I'm still working on it. He takes the flute out. He's like, yeah.
You guys always. Why do you guys always get to do all the cool shit while I'm stuck here building a moat?
Because you never come with us?
You should come with us.
There's nice ways to answer that, and there's
the way that Naya and Elvis have her answered it?
Yeah. You do a great job.
Nice.
This entire team
nice.
is very, very important and vital. The one that you run with. It's a very, very essential crew. We really appreciate your efforts, and defending this place is of the utmost importance because Marissa is kind of our, communicator uplink to everyone else, and really, really helpful to have her be able to kind of be our eyes and ears everywhere.
Yeah, I know. I know. We gotta fortify the place. I know what we're doing.
I'm not saying we appreciate it as a pleasantry. We, mean it very sincerely. This is a project we care very dearly about ourselves, and don't worry. I mean, there will be more fights to be had in the future.
Hey, invent being in 2 places at one time, and I'm in.
He just says, "I'm just bitching and itching for a fight, so don't worry about it."
Well, we didn't get to fight much. So.
Oh, we did fight some wyverns.
Yeah, true.
Well,
wyverns weren't even real. I didn't get.
Sure, they were.
Egg.
They were real, just not in this era.
My egg.
You just stay sharp, Kuramazo, because at any given moment, something could start coming and burrowing up from the ground. And why, I believe when we first came to this area, something did that. We had to fight it off.
I know, we sealed up the hole and everything.
Egg. Everything I hunt is taken away from me or runs away. No hypnotic rabbit. No giant wyvern egg. My competition is canonically.
Oh, stop whining, Albus.
You're a druid. You're all like enlightened and shit.
Stop whining.
Okay, but in the meantime, please stop whining. It gets old.
I mean, I don't think your instructor would have Well, I don't know if they taught you to whine or not. Sometimes that's actually a skill. I think kobolds are really good at it.
Yeah,
Brigadier
tactical
Yeah, but he
whining.
took too many good lessons from kobolds. So
Tactical wheedling.
Brigadier says, "Glad to see you're all in good spirits."
I'd
She,
be able to report back.
Stop whining.
She marks you off of her checklist.
Diligent as always.
So we have news.
Yeah, tell me everything.
Time is bendable.
Yeah,
We
I
knew
tell her
that.
about my 2 cities and the mire in between.
Yes, but after everything else is, after all the factual details have been told.
Okay. So she'll absorb this information. You've gathered the rest for story time at this point.
I was going to have a Wolverine, and we were going to be able to write it, and the commission was going to have such a valuable asset.
As your story continues, Artha is here, of course, and she, when you mention the reason that you set out on this quest to collect these plants, she exclaims, "Sirius fell ill? That's horrible. When did this happen?"
I mean, she's always been kind of sickly, in my honest opinion.
Yes, but while delicate, it never got to the point where she needed intensive care.
Rissa, do you have any idea of when this might have been in the timeline?
It might have been a few months after the Champions Banquet of 198?
Yep.
Question mark.
198. What year is it now?
12,
1220.
20, yeah.
Let me think. Before the Redshift, the memories in order. The Redshift began. Before that, the
The Redshift began before the events in Medoro?
No,
Okay.
no. You mentioned before that you've encountered orcs from the Prism Sea, is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I remember before the Redshift, their forces were annihilated in battle by King Erditus.
This would have been very closely following that, as the orcs that we dealt with were stragglers of that conflict.
It's possible that they did something to her, and that's why the medicine needed was a little more powerful. It seemed like she was brought specifically to that city for that treatment.
She sighs and says, "Well, I'm under no illusions that the king or queen or princess are still around, but I suppose I'm just not happy to hear that things were not okay." It's a shame.
Well, the other thing that we encountered is a wall made of glass.
Thousands high.
In our time today, we are unable to actually bypass this wall.
It's a few feet thick. This glass is impenetrable. Can't break it, can't chip it, can't scratch it. It appears to
We
be
did find you can go above it.
a mundane glass of insurmountable strength.
Oh, even if it was made of a mundane glass, this is a wonder of the world.
Right.
We're not sure.
I'm already working on a second concept album about it called The Wall.
Arisa
Hey.
Arisa says, "Oh, well, that's pretty weird." And the brigadier says, "Okay, well, that's a new problem to deal with."
Well, it's especially a relevant problem when it comes to how are we going to get to Vesov,
in
the tower,
city, you said.
Right.
'Cause
It blocks
we
our
can't-
progress.
we can't pass this wall.
And I don't know if we might be able to lead up on it or not. I don't know what might come up in the meantime. But if we can, it might be wise to look in the mountains for any ruins of water canals. We might be able to find a way into the city via there, but that's as far-fetched an idea as we got. And
Well,
It's
yes,
hard.
if you're telling me that you've encountered an unbreakable wall, um, well, no offense, but it would definitely be in our interest to get a second opinion on that.
Sure.
However, if that does turn out to be correct, my first instinct would then be to simply go around it. Now,
exactly.
how are we going to do that?
We
That's
did
where
find
the
we
water
can go above it.
It's
That's as far as we've gotten so far.
it's
How
a few
tall?
minutes of flight for Badath to go straight up and get over it and come back down. So it's far enough up that even a fiery bird like this kind of becomes almost impossible to see towards the top.
Lulu says a few minutes. An owl flying up that high, that sounds like thousands and thousands of feet.
Yep. I don't know if any mountains get even close to that high that we'd be able to use to go around it.
But that was our thought, was that there are, mountain ranges on either side of this wall, so maybe we can find a way to saddle the wall by climbing the mountain.
Or even better, perhaps there's a ley line somewhere up in the mountains where we'd be able to set down a crystal and get ourselves another base built up there. Of course, we would have to do this in relative secrecy and probably try to build it inside some sort of covered area so that we're not just out in the open for anybody
Right,
flying
some sort
over.
of blind, a concealed spot. Yeah.
We do know there might be a spring up there.
Well, yeah. I mean, in the past, we saw a natural spring that, minus the wyverns, would have been a perfect location for something like what we're talking about. I wonder though if we might. Nimbus, you had mentioned that there is that fortress from our favorite dragon friends to the south. It may be that we could also sail around the problem. We never did finish exploring the northeastern part of the bay. Maybe there's a way to go around the mountain and come up from that side.
That's a good point. The brigadier says, I can tell you that there's been no additional movement at Princess Nasharala's fort since you've been gone. Not a whisper, not a stray leaf
That's surprising.
That's what Dex tells me anyway. He's the one keeping the eye on it.
I wonder if that warrants investigation in and of itself.
Right?
That said,
Angela says, if it's empty, then we could stop them from getting back there ever again. If they used a teleporting circle.
right.
Sounds like there's going to be a bit of work involved in
Right?
getting that drawbridge down and getting in the front door. Or, actually, I can't remember. Was it a drawbridge or was it just a bridge?
It was a
It was a
drawbridge.
It was a
drawbridge.
drawbridge. Okay.
We did see 2 open courtyards when we were above it. It might be that there's some way to come in that way.
Through the roof, yes. That's as I've had described. We can see those from above, and indeed we've seen nothing moving about inside either. If we could ensure that they were cut off from that fort and have no information on the other princelings and their territories nearby, then I would feel a lot safer sending a boat up that coastline.
The one thing I worry is that they might come with ever more reinforcements if we do that. With Morio, they didn't know. They didn't even seem to really know that he was dead until perhaps that he stopped showing up. Because we defeated him and then we destroyed the teleportation circle, if I remember correctly. Actually, shit, I don't even remember. Did we kill him first, or did we destroy it on the first time in?
Oh.
Yes, you only destroyed the circle after he had been dead for some time.
So then that probably helped not raise as many alarms as him not being able to teleport back.
Yeah, and Sharp says, well, yeah, you kill the young lad, and then his siblings don't hear about it for weeks and weeks till he shows up again. Sounds like they didn't like him very much, or he didn't tell them about us.
I feel insulted.
They did seem a little offended to see his soiled, personalized handkerchief, I believe it was, that Elvis left in the arena.
It was. I wiped my bum with it.
Well, at that point, I think any sibling would be angry. But if he didn't tell them about you in the first place, then they would have had no reason to know about it until they bumped into you on the field.
The siblings seem to know about Maricus, or at least Orvis.
I think that was a bluff.
No, I have a feeling they saw Orvis, but they sent a few of their people in and got shredded by the beast. Remember.
That even seems likely to me.
Lucent says, yeah, that's certainly possible. It was, I mean, if I remember correctly, there was even a paper beholder involved in that ordeal.
Certainly, and I doubt that they would figure out to use a mirror to see its true form. So, I scarcely think that they would have been able to take care of the situation. Perhaps looting the outskirts to some extent, but...
Crow says it's too bad we couldn't keep all that stuff. If we had some way to make a paper dragon, if that Dragon King shows up here, we'd be just fine.
Well, I saved some of the scraps and passed them along to Dex to examine, but I don't think there is much we could do with it. It might have just been a full
He says one of these
manifestation of
days we're
evil.
gonna find something useful out here. Sorry, Arisa.
There's definitely things to be had. I mean, we did get 2 of the 3. We found some stuff. Found that
So at this
druid's
point,
cache on the island.
our to-do list has changed and shifted a bit. In order for us to get to Vess, or the tower, we have to be able to clear the glass wall.
Or find a way around it, yes.
Yeah, somehow. So, whether it's creating a lift to get to the top and then over, or finding a way on either side, something. And I think we're going to need more scouting parties in order to find that out.
I worry though.
There really isn't anything from where we encountered it at the entrance to Chaussee. We didn't run across really any trouble. So another couple of scouting teams could conceivably go there. One go to the north and the other goes to the south, following that wall, and see if there's any way around it and see what they come up with.
Have you mentioned Kieran's last words yet by now?
Probably, yeah.
Oh yeah, I wanted to explain my whole theory of time. So
Okay.
Yeah, you said you did the whole 2 towns with the mire.
In response to the 2 towns in the mire, she would probably respond that that's a little arcane for my reasoning. But I see what you're getting at, Lauren. But if you're telling me that something in the Redshift is telling you to get to the center of the Redshift, then I suppose I'm inclined to believe it on instinct. So I don't suppose it would be wise to delay too much longer.
Is that
We
not
need to
the heart of power for where everybody, all the dragon's siblings, I should say, teleport back to and rest up?
Magnius told us that they live in a volcano. Arisa, is Vess located in a volcano? He says nope. There's well, back in my day, there were a couple places that had some volcanic activity. Some north, some south, but I don't know. These things change over 1,000 years.
We had some long chats about what would be the purpose of a wall this size. Now, it could have been a mistake, could have been an experiment, but if it was done deliberately and skillfully, because the glass is perfect, then it raises questions about why. And what came to mind for me is defense against something flying, and that suggests dragons. If Vesoth had no other defense against an army of flying dragons than a glass wall, heading, due east to them might be what they come up with. as a plant.
Arsa says, well, an army of flying dragons would certainly be scary, but I don't think we've ever dealt with anything quite like that. The occasional um, hostile dragon, however, was not unheard of.
Well, what if they got information after the redshift caused everything to shut down? What if they got information that said that an entire army was incoming? This is all they could come up with.
From where?
From wherever this lair is that the dragons can hang out.
Well, we know the dragon came after the redshift, if you recall.
Right.
So depending on when that wall was built, it may be that it has nothing to do with our dragon friend at all. But you're right, we never really did figure out when that wall was built.
Right.
So maybe it was built to deal with the dragons in some way, in which case there may be a very powerful operator out there that we have yet to encounter.
And it may be that the tower at Vesoth is still just fine with all kinds of life powering it.
Could be that there is
And
an artifact the king had that they tried to wish something from a god, and this was the result.
Right.
Montlarn, in response to your obelisk suggestion, you see Sharp get overrun by Lulu as she explains very quickly that, well, it might be possible somehow eventually. I mean, Dex is the inventor of these things, and he's pretty good at this stuff, so maybe he could make something work. But you kind of have to think of it like it's connected to the place that it's currently located, and that's sort of how it keeps everything from not being not real anymore. Basically, if you moved it, you'd have to set it all up again every time.
It's almost as if we need some way to pair it with another one, or perhaps make some method that allows us to extend the power of an obelisk through a sort of temporary portal we can set up.
Lucent says this is certainly something that has been a high priority for us over the past few years. Obviously, being able to have a mobile base would make our lives a lot easier. I agree with you that we should try to use everything we can to get this working. But personally, I'm inclined to work under the assumption that we may never be able to figure something like that out.
And that's fine if we never figure it out. But we do have to figure out how to get past the glass wall, or we are never getting to the tower.
It sounds like then we need to deal with these two siblings once and for all, get them out of our hair, and get back to the more important stuff. Getting to that tower and solving this redshift.
Well, if you want us to take over their lair, we can make preparations to do that. I don't know that it will. I don't know that it will solve the glass tower problem, though.
No.
Well, in theory,
I'm not sure which thing should go first.
In theory, if the region around the fortress is cleared, if we do manage to keep them from returning, we can see if there's a way to drop us off on the other side of the mountains via the bay and sail in, for lack of a better way to put it.
Our movement since you all found this tower here has been quite restricted, thanks to those two and their turf that they've defended. I have not been willing to send people besides yourselves out and about on the front lines and risk their necks while we're dealing with this problem. If we can cut them off, which I think was the plan the first time you went there, we know they have a teleport circle in that fortress. We know Magnius was not lying to us now because he told us about this fortress and we know that they used it. For whatever reason, they have not come back.
I expect
Speaking
they're still being punished for retreating.
to tactics, perhaps it is some kind of punishment. Perhaps they're merely regenerating whatever forces they have. But in their position, knowing what they know that we've done so far, knowing that they can no longer access Morio's lair, they must know that we have the ability to cut them off. We have, in a certain sense, an advantage here. So then, if we don't act on that while we have it and we let them come back, then we may be in for a world of hurt at that time.
That's true. I have no idea how many more of them have their strongholds on this side of the glass wall.
Yes, Van's team has made a little bit more progress southeast, and they tell me they've found a potential midway location that they can set up a yet another obelisk and potentially connect with us in a few more weeks. So they also tell me they haven't encountered any villains at this point. So it seems like the northwestern territory is all clear, which only leaves the parts that we haven't explored yet, far to the north and far to the east. We know of Morio, we know of Nasharala and Zoramos. We know there are 4 more active princes, according to Magnius.
Right.
From the scope of the turf that these 3 that we've already encountered are covering, assuming each squad covers roughly the same amount of area, there's only a few more places they could be reasonably, by my map anyway. Those, she says those places may be over the mountains. I can't imagine they'd be right next to Nasharella and Zorimos' lair anyway.
Right, they don't seem the type to share territory.
It may be miles and miles and miles before we even bump into anything like that again. If you can go there and if you can cut off this teleportation circle, then I'll be able to send out expeditionists again in the surrounding areas near where we are now. We'll be able to cover a lot of turf. We'll be able to get people here to this tower. We'll be able to send people to that glass wall and start trying to break through it or around it or under it or whatever we have to do. While others look for a way around it. I can't justify sending people out while I know those dragons are still at large. So I think the optimal strategy here is to destroy what we can.
Well, hopefully they won't be coming right back when we do it.
Yes, well, hopefully.
I'm down with giving the enemy a good one too.
I realize now, after I've said all of that, perhaps there was a risk we've been being scryed on this whole time, but I suppose that's unavoidable at this point. And that does make me wonder whether we should take that fort for our own or leave it. If
Well, let us know what you decide. In the meantime, we need to come up with a plan A and a plan B and a plan C, because we're going to be far out there, and unless you give us an obelisk, we will not have the ability to stay out there for very long.
I know. No, destroy the teleport circle, then come back here. I think that's what you have to do first. We couldn't bring an obelisk there even if we wanted to right now. It's too unsafe, too dangerous. She says too expensive, even if they were to snap it in two.
I hope it'll be as easy as the last one, just spraying it with acid until the floor is unrecognizable.
Lulu stampedes Sharp again to say, well, yeah, as long as you get rid of the structure of the teleport circle, it becomes completely unusable just because it's all keyed into the coordinates. No coordinates, no teleportation. No matter how you do it. Unless you can see it, I guess, but they can't see that from where they are. Probably.
I would certainly hope not.
It would be kind of a pointless teleport circle at that point.
Well, are we going to bring both teams for something like this then?
Lucen says, I think despite everything, it would still be wise to have defenders here, just in case.
That's reasonable.
If they do happen to return as you leave, as the Redshift wanes, in fact, they're far enough away, it would even be trivial for them to slip out before you've noticed anything. And, well, I suppose we could contact you at that point. But that would mean they could potentially come here. And that would be a very high risk.
But if they do, and you call us back, that actually gives us a great opportunity for a pincer attack.
That is true. Yes, so that might be even better, in fact.
At this point, I don't know about Zoramos, but I have a feeling I could probably take Nasharala and open one-on-one combat.
Promisawa says, if you can catch her above ground long enough, then, well, yeah. I mean, all I need is one good swing, and then no more single-piece Nasharala.
I have a feeling she's tougher than she looks.
If you can catch her.
Hmm. At the very least, if they don't actually use the rain of fire because they don't want to destroy the location, then the rest of these defenses would hold up quite nicely. I don't.
Agreed. We should be able to make some solid progress on shoring up the moat through this redshift, and then it's just a matter of keeping it filled, I suppose, and
Certainly.
filling it with spikes.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've got enough time to fill it all the way up.
Angela says, Arisa, sorry we're cutting down your whole forest.
I can cast a spell that will make it all regrow over the next year.
She says, no, it's totally fine. You all have to defend yourselves and me. I'm helpless out here. And plus, like Naya says, she can get things back to normal. I may be a witch, but this isn't the type of industry I'm opposed to. You're doing good work out here.
Thanks,
Okay,
I really appreciate
so
that.
short answer, the TLDR version is we're headed back. We're going to destroy the fort. Yes, no, maybe.
Yep.
I mean, that sounds like the plan to me. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and are we going to explore the length and breadth of, or at least the breadth of the glass wall, or is somebody else going to do that?
Yeah, one problem at a time, I think.
Yeah, you have not scouted out the full wall. You have some idea of where it stretches to and from at this point. You have not yet found its endpoints, so that would be a task for later. Lucent is not going to send out anyone up there yet until you've made sure that things are safe from Nasharala and Zuramos. That will be limited. But if you all can take out the teleport circle, then that would be something that could start as early as next week.
Well, yeah, then let's get to it.
Okay.
Agreed.
How are we supplied on rope and chain? I'm trying to think of what's going to be the easiest way for us to get in safely.
I have 2 lengths of rope with me, but I might need to get more.
I think I carry rope.
I carry rope.
Last redshift, we had a few things shipped up here from Castus, so you should have most of the things that you need.
About how far was the
Right on.
drop from the point where we put the surveillance device?
Actually, it looks like I don't have any rope. I wonder if I used it when we were doing the surveillance device.
Less than 100 feet.
Not comfortable, but climbable.
Yeah, definitely climbable, or ropeable or levitatable or whatever. That would be kind of to the roof of the fort, though. So a little bit further to get to ground level from there.
Yeah.
But again, it's a cliff, so there's footholds and stuff.
Probably about 150 feet. And honestly, if we have enough rope, Alvis, you're pretty good with your hands. If you could actually make more of a rope ladder for a little bit of stability.
I've read about it. Might be able to do it.
We've used one before.
A rope ladder would
I meant about making it.
You could easily spend your downtime crafting. Probably wouldn't even take you the full week. Maybe a day or two of work at worst.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so last thing we'll confirm is that everybody gets 40 marks. Today.
Right on.
All right.
And I would like to also have Montlarin, Alvis Taver, and Naya, all three of you mark down a point of inspiration for today.
Cool.
Thank you.
Whenever you want.
Sweet.
As a reminder, you can only have one inspiration at a time. You can use it on any D20 roll to get advantage. So, use it wisely.
Remember to use it.
Remember.
Right.
You said 40 marks, right?
Yes.
And was there any
everybody?
XP?
Everybody gets 40.
Was there any XP? I'm just doing math. It's late.
We got XP for the Holtzman adventure, but
Okay.
for the other stuff you guys did,
Well,
we'll
we
also have you.
mostly had sitting around a campfire.
Yeah,
Right.
but there was certainly some progress, so we'll add on 500 apiece for XP.
All right.
Nice.
Cool.
Will not complain.
But I
Well,
asked.
Yeah, and that'll be it for tonight, I think. So
Yeah, thanks for the
next
session,
week,
man.
Back to the fort.
Back to the fort.
We might want to get some holy water if we can. I expect there's going to be more flame skulls.
Oh, that's a
Might
good
be-
point.
That
Yeah.
might be doable. You do have a couple clerics here.
Nuh-uh.
Uh-uh.
I will play my flute over the water.
Right, make some rock jazz.
It will
Yeah, like-
it will save the resonance of
he
my
literally
music.
wouldn't even make holy water because he just would say no, right?
Yeah, I can't make holy water. I don't know what you're talking about.
I did not learn the ceremony spell. Please stop asking.
What? What even is that?
It's okay. Angela's here. She'll cover you.
That's cool. I do actually know.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize I pressed honey.
I do know the rock hard skill, so I will put the water there, and I will play my flute over the water, and put the resonance of my music into the flute, into the water, and then when you it will just it's like that electrolyte water you can buy at the store,
Right, mineral water, if you will.
Only rather than minerals, it's my music. It's musical
It's
water.
rock and roll, right? I get it.
Okay, gang. Thanks for playing. Great session.
Thanks,
I'm
Aaron.
looking forward to next week.
Yeah, lore session was cool. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Make sure to sign up on the calendar. It's all up there.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Cool. See you next
Everybody
time.
watching
Yep.
or watching this later, have a good one. Thanks for tuning in.